Hello, friends. It is Masters Week. Let's go. This is the Win Daily Sports Show. My name is Michael Brazil. I got Sia Najad. I got Joel Schreck here with me, and we are breaking down the Masters. We got your DFS plays. We got your betting plays. We remembered who won the Masters last year. I swear to God. And it is going to be a good night. Sia, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Your hello friends was so calming. It was.
Right?
I felt like I was like in a warm, comfortable, heated blanket. It was really nice. You know what's not really nice though? Real quick, it's kind of an aside. I know we only have an hour, but I'm gearing up for the Masters, right? And I promise I'm going to leave a trail of breadcrumbs here for you guys to follow me to where I'm going. But the point is, so we did. We obviously do NFL. We're huge in DFS and sports betting and all that. The team at Win Daily, and we've been awesome this year, like ridiculous. I've made more money this year than I ever have in DFS, which is really saying something. But here's the thing. I rostered David Johnson and Justin Jackson on so many of my teams, okay? And on play one, Justin Jackson was injured. He wasn't even carrying the ball. Somebody just fell into his knee on play action. And David Johnson got injured, I think, on like play 2 or 3. And so now fast forward to right now, it's the Masters. I see Kevin Na already complaining of like some slight back pain. I know Jason Day's in this tournament, who's a guy I like. And I have so much PTSD from what just happened 3 days ago that I'm like, I don't even know if I like Na's kind of whatever anyway, but like Jason, like, I don't know. Like now I have to like potentially fade these guys because of what happened to me in NFL DFS like a couple days ago. It's weird. And I don't like it. And Joel, how do you feel about that?
Well, I want to address for 1 second. I thought there was literally going to be no end to that story, so I'm really glad we made it there. Joel, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Well, let me make you feel better about that, Sia. So, give you some context. Earlier this year, as I told you guys, I play a lot of college football as well. I took a beating where I went like 2 weeks in a row where like 2 of my highest owned guys, like something they either got scratched last second I had them in, or they got hurt like first play. And so like obviously you can't make any money that way. I took a beating for 2 weeks, went into the next week with the mentality that like, you're at, but tried to reverse it on myself. Like, don't let that short side. You know that like you just gotta take your plays. If that happens, it happens. And that's when I ended up hitting my biggest hit of the week the next week, playing some injury prone guys. So don't have a short memory, go back at it, like we always say, right? Go back at it. As everyone already knows, this week is a tradition, unlike any other. So with that being said, there's no election coverage to interrupt us tonight. There's no other sports. They all wised up. They knew that tonight was the night they had no chance to compete. So here we are, just us and the Masters.
That's us, right. The Masters, Rays Crick, Amen Corner, a couple different places I hear. Hogan Bridge, that's a place, right? All sounds great. Tiger Woods, guys. Tiger Woods won the Masters last year. Just wanted everybody to know that. We definitely remember. Well, yes, Joel.
And I'm going to defend us and this show to do my bone. He won it 20 months ago. So while technically it was the last Masters, it's not. It's barely last year in our defense.
It's true. And compliments before we get into this top range. So the Discord was firing on all cylinders already today. And I think it was Jay Garver 345. There's a Tebow sort of tag in there as well. And a lot of like Willett and a lot of these other guys. I'm looking right now, Bam Bam, Agtown. Those guys are super active and they kind of like tooled on us for last week, which was actually kind of hilarious. So
yes. Anyway. Yeah. I thought it was Tiger. And then I double guessed myself. That's not the correct terminology. Guess. Yeah, thank you. You know, and then you guys kind of jumped in, and then we all realized we're idiots. But yes, it was about like it feels like it was 3 or 4 years ago at this point when Molinari just crapped his pants on the last day when Brooks missed that putt on 17 or 18, which probably would have sent it to the playoff, which would have been just electric. But here we are, the Masters. It is in November. Kind of crazy going up against what would have actually been Alabama LSU. But Alabama LSU has got canceled, unfortunately. But it is going to be a fun weekend no matter what. And let us dive into it. Just as a point of context, Bryson, Dustin Johnson, and John Rahm have the 3 best odds to win the entire thing. So let's see what happens. And I think I also saw something today. Somebody thinks Bryson can knock the ball 445 yards or something ridiculous. He's using a 48-inch driver. None of that means anything to me, but it should mean something to you guys, and I'm excited to ask you about it. So, Sia, let's get into it. I'm looking at DraftKings. That's where I'm getting the pricing because who actually plays FanDuel Golf anyway? We got Bryson. We got Justin Thomas. We got Jon Rahm. We got Rory, and we have Dustin Johnson up there in that 5-digit range. Sia, talk to me a little bit about who these guys are and why you think some of them might win the Masters.
Well, I mean, you know who they are. That's for damn sure. But I think everybody who's playing DFS knows who they are. And what we say every week is if you have like a really harsh argument, fading one of these guys or like a really strong argument. By the way, it's second guess, Michael, not double guess.
Thank you.
But,
okay. Awesome.
You're kind of being a little disingenuous if you're like, I hate Justin Thomas this week, right? Like the top 5 guys here are all really good. I can make plenty of arguments against Rory because while he's making cuts, he hasn't been nearly as elite as the other guys, and I've talked about him at length, so I don't need to go there. I'll tell you, though, before I kick it to you, Joel, the 2 guys that I think I'm going to be on in both in cash and GPP more than anybody else. I would say normally I'd be on Justin Thomas, but I like Jon Rahm and Dustin Johnson. Dustin Johnson's kind of an obvious one, and that's why his ownership percentage is already like getting close to 25% because he's improperly priced at 10,000. Like the fact that Justin Thomas and Jon Rahm are $500, $700 more than him is like kind of silly, obviously. So Dustin Johnson, it's not a free square because he's 10,000, but he certainly makes sense given how hot he's been. His last 3 Masters, 2nd, 4th, and 10th, I believe. I mean, the one time he didn't play well, it's because he didn't play because he, quote, fell down the stairs. Yeah. So he's been dominant lately, and he's been dominant on this course. And just so everybody knows, course history, if you've listened to any podcasts or anything on the Masters, like it's a big deal and people are going to talk about that all the time. So Dustin Johnson checks all the boxes with course history, recent form, and actually being top 10 in the last 3 Masters that he's been in. And then the other guy, Jon Rahm, he's in good form too. He was 2nd place at the Zozo. He's got 2 top 10 finishes. I think his highest was 4th in the last 2 times he's been out here. So those are the 2 guys I'm going to be leaning on. It's not surprising that they're both, basically both approaching 25%. They're in that 23% range. I'll tell you the lowest guy right now looks to be Rory, which makes sense. And the second lowest at under 15% or about 15%. And Stephen will, in his article tomorrow, Stephen with Win Daily, he'll clarify this, but it looks like Justin Thomas is 15 and Bryson's in that sort of close to 20% range. So that's how that's shaken out. But unfortunately, I like the 2 most popular guys.
Well, hey, you can get different in other places, and that's why we do an hour-long show on everybody. Joel, talk to me about Rory, why you think he's going to win, and then everybody else in this range.
So as you guys all know, I will every week give you a reason to play Rory, right? So I'm happy to do so again this week. Few reasons why you should like Rory this week. First one is that if you're a storyline guy, if you want to follow this week and think, what's my storyline behind? One thing that no one's talking about that I think could become interesting, especially if Rory's in contention at the end of the week, is that he still just needs this to complete the career Grand Slam. And so that's something that if he's leading and it's close to the end of the week, that's what everyone's going to be focused on. And that's not something I've heard anytime now, which when that happens, when something's not being talked about before the tournament, usually I feel like that ends up being more and more the case. So again, no golf data is telling you to take Rory. And like Sia said, you can make a case for any of the top 5 guys, right? This is a field where I think, and we'll talk about this more on the betting side as well, one of these top guys is likely going to win this tournament. So if you want to be interesting with some of your lineups and go for the lower owned guys in the top tier, because everyone's going to be playing DJ and Rahm and those guys, then I think it's a really good play because I think any of this top tier can certainly win the tournament. With that being said, like Sia said, it's all about course history here. Augusta is a very difficult course to play if you've never seen it before. If you're not used to the greens, if you're not used to it, guys struggle in their first try. I mean, I think I've read, other than the first ever Masters, only one person has won the Masters on their first try. So you want guys who have a history, who have played it before. And so of all these top tier, the kind of guy who has the worst history is Bryson. He's really never, I mean, he hasn't done poorly, but he hasn't really like his last 5, he doesn't have a top 10. He's got a few in the 20s and 30s. But this is a course where you want to be long, and we all know beefy Bryson with his steroids is going to be knocking him out there.
Whoa.
As the resident lawyer,
my goodness.
Joking. Totally joking. Just joking.
I was gonna
Right,
say
I
Beefy
understand.
Bryson if you weren't, so I'm glad. Stop it. I'm glad you said Beefy Bryson, but geez, man, come on. We're not trying to get. Sia doesn't need more work to do. But anyway, please go on.
So no, but I think because he's priced so high, his history isn't as great. People will be on him. But I think he could also be a good way to get different, right? Because it's going to be harder to make your builds with a guy that high. So I like him this week because he's in good form this year. He's been playing superb. And maybe this is a year where he kind of turns around and makes the Masters, a fit for him, and he finally breaks into the top 10. The problem with Bryson is if you take Bryson and he gets a top 10, that's not good enough at this price range. You need him at a top 2 or 3. Other than that, it's not worth his salary. But yeah, other than that, for the most part, this whole range I like. If I had to do a quick power ranking, I would go DJ, Rahm, Bryson, Thomas, Rory.
I love it. I love it. So I do want to stick here for one more second and talk about Bryson, because as we've seen, he got a little bit bigger. Now, I don't know why or how, and we're not going to speculate. I think that part's very important. But with the news coming out saying that he might end up using a new driver or whatever, and I only saw that on ESPN's Bottom Line. So it's very, I guess, known. I don't even know. You guys can Google search it as I kind of just, take up a little bit more time here. But I feel like, as much as we want to look at course history, Bryson's not really the same golfer he was 6 months ago, 8 months ago, whatever it was. How much of that and how much of potentially utilizing, I'll start with you, utilizing a new driver, how much of course history can you take into effect, or how much weight do you guys want to put on this new version of Bryson versus the old, I guess?
I see what you did there. And it's a good question. And the answer is I'm not going to, this is the one guy. I mean, I'm trying to think of another guy in this field, but this is the one guy where I'm really not going to look at course history, because what he's doing now versus, like you said, what he was doing 9-10 months ago is just vastly different in terms of his length. The thing is, though, that he is tinkering with his equipment still. He's debating on which driver to pull out and all this stuff, or which driver to use. And I don't really like that. And I just wonder if his machismo is going to get the best of him, which we've seen that happen before, where he just kind of goes for it and it goes wrong. I mean,
he rages out. Would you say that? Would he rage out?
Would he rage out?
Is that
he does rage out?
Okay.
Just the rage part. Nothing.
Just the rage part. Yeah. No
that.
reason for it, of course. No.
Just your classic everyday non-steroidal rage. Oh. Anyway, the point is, listen, it's a lot of protein at the end of the day, honestly. But the point is, no course history, but it's not that I'm fading him, but I'm not as confident in him just because he can hit it long and take these crazy angles. I'm not as confident in him as I am like a Rahm or DJ, because I think they can get the job done their own conventional way, which, by the way, they're pretty long too. So I see Bryson getting into more trouble than those other two guys that I like. And that's why I don't really feel the need to jam him in a bunch of lineups. And by the way, that's why his ownership percentage is lower than DJ and Rahm, because I think as much as people are fascinated by him, they see DJ and guys like Rahm as just more, and Justin Thomas as just more reliable. And that makes perfect sense.
And how about you, Joel? Does that stuff worry you at all to kind of fade him a little bit more?
Yes, I don't like the fact that he's tinkering with toys. You want to be going into the Masters locked in. This is my driver, and I am crushing this every time where I want it to go. So, yeah, that's a little concerning. I think the course history thing, Sia was spot on with it. It's hard to use that because he's just a different golfer now than he was then. But with that being said, it's not a negative either way. His course history was never bad. I mean, 20s and not something I would shy away from, and he's just a better golfer now. So, he's one of those guys where it could go either way. I like him to take a bet of him to win the tournament and miss the cut, right? Because I feel like it's one or the other. If he's dialed in, he's going to be up there, and if he's not, he's going to be way off. So that's almost how you would hedge. Take him to win and take him to miss the cut. One or the other. You'll probably win it on Sunday, or you'll get your money back with the missed cut bet.
I love it. Bryson to miss the cut here on our friends over at DraftKings plus 550. Bryson to win the tournament plus 750. So solid odds. Definitely some solid odds there. All right, let us move on. I think that's enough time on those top guys because there's a lot of people in this field, right? It's the Masters. Everybody but Hovland and Berger, I think, at this point. So, Joel, talk to me a little bit about this 9K range, who you're liking here and what you're thinking.
Yeah, and so, just to as a big picture, we kind of want to touch on all those top guys because they're all in play. Big picture-wise this week, it does feel like a lot of people are playing stars and scrubs. I think it's going to be hard to get away. You're going to need at least a star or two in your life. I'm fully convicted one of those big names is going to win the tournament. So you definitely want to get your shares of them in there. I want to try to avoid the scrubs, though. So I don't want to go below 6,500. So if I can, I'm going to cut one of the top guys and then, try and balance it out from there so we can keep maybe only one guy in the 7 high 6s. And so if we can get like almost like a stars and scrubs hybrid type model is kind of how I'm approaching.
It's fancy.
So,
Yeah.
the Tesla of builds.
Exactly. So, some would say I'm an innovator, but who knows, right? I'm just trying to help out every reader and for everyone at a time. But with this range, there's a lot to like. So I'll kind of breeze through who I'm targeting. Xander could easily be in the 10,000 range. Like he's in that elite group. So I'll include Xander first. And I would probably, when you're doing your groupings, I would group him in that top range as well as those guys that you're mixing in and out. He could easily win the tournament. He got tied for second last year. He doesn't have too much of history because he's young. He just hasn't played it all that many times. But I think Xander's definitely a fair spot for you to be one of the guys that you mix and match. I'm probably going to be I'm not going to completely fade Brooks, but I'm not going to be too high on him. As we all know, Brooks is frustrating, right? Brooks has the talent to be the best golfer in every tournament that he plays in. But he usually shows up in the big tournament, and this is certainly the big tournament. And he came around last week when his kind of his weekend statistics last week were unreal. He almost won the whole tournament. So I like him from that perspective. I wouldn't hate you playing him, but for me, I just like the other guys this week. I think they're more dialed in. They've been healthier. He's just coming back off an injury. So for that reason, I'm not too high on Brooks this week. I'm probably also fading Morikawa. I think his lack of experience here is going to come to play because that's what we're reading everywhere. It's like it's hard to read these greens, and guys who have played here have a big advantage, and he's not going to have that, especially for a guy that's typically not a good putter. I think that could really hurt him. So I am fading, which is probably surprising, but he's not kind of on my list. And then Hatton. So Hatton's interesting. Hatton does not have a history here, but Hatton's one of those guys on a smaller scale as like Bryson, where he's a different golfer now than he's been in previous years. He's way better, and we're taking a new guy that we're seeing and using those advanced metrics. We were kind of like we said last week. He was our favorite player at the US Open. That obviously didn't pan out. But that's what we were getting back to. Like, that doesn't mean we should now fade him, right? Go back. We saw something last week. There was a reason for it. A lot of those reasons why we liked him last week, which is he's one of the best hitters on tour with his long irons, that's going to come into play here this week. So a lot of those things are still good for Hatton here, and I think he could be another way for you to get different, as people will probably be off of him for flopping last week, and he might be able to have a nice rebound for you for this week at the Masters. And then going down, I'll just mention, I like Webb. Webb, I think is getting overlooked. He probably could be up in that upper tier with the top 5 or 6 guys. He's tied for 5th last year, tied for 20th in 2018. He has a few top 30s the years before that. He's got a great history. The only one knock on Webb this week is that he's just not that long, and they are trying to find longer golfers, especially if it's going to be wet and rainy, and you're not going to get a lot of extra carry. So if that's the one negative, I don't think that's the reason to fade. In DFS, he will have a hard time getting some of those eagles that you're capable of getting here at the Masters with some of those par 5s. So from a scoring perspective, Webb, you'll need to probably finish top 2 or 3 for him to be worth his salary, because you won't get the bonus eagles and points off of him this week, but he can do that here. So at 9,300, he could be a nice value play. Now the fun one.
Here we go. Let's do it.
The big cat. Listen, his form has not been like that great. Like, there's nothing to put off the page right now that's saying we need to squeeze Tiger in every lap. You can't fade Tiger. Absolutely not. But, and this is a big but, when you're preparing for the Masters, right? How many sayings other than "hello, friends" and it's a tradition unlike other are tied with the Masters, right? I can think of one more, and it's Tiger at Augusta, right? The guy is special in big moments. This is a big moment. This is a big course. He shows up when it counts. I'm not going to fade Tiger. No, I'm not going to say he's a lock-in. Definitely not a lock-in. Do not play him in all your lineups. That would not be a good idea. But definitely don't fade him either, right? Because I don't think anyone's going to be shocked if we see Tiger in the top 10 approaching Sunday, and that's all anyone's ever talking about, because Tiger is locked in when it comes to these big tournaments like the Masters. And don't forget, a few podcasts ago I mentioned, and now's the time to bring it back up, Tiger and Thomas months ago came over to Augusta to practice the Masters because that's all they cared about months ago, right? Now it's here. They've been preparing for this for months. So keep that in mind. JT and Tiger have been preparing for this for months. They came back here in the middle of their season just to practice preparing for this week. So I think that's something to keep in mind when building lineups as well.
I love it. And I think I asked you to make a JT and Tiger lineup at some point during that podcast. It feels like it was like 3 months ago now, but I don't remember. But it's good. It's interesting. I mean, of course, we got it. I mean, Tiger plus 4,500 to win. I mean, come on, guys. It's $1. Just put $1 down. Then you can say you were on it, right? It makes you look so much cooler. So I think that part's pretty important, but it's definitely an interesting range. And I think there's a lot of people, as you said, Brooks Koepka, we know he likes to only get up for these big tournaments. Morikawa, you make some great points. Hatton as well. And yeah, Webb Simpson definitely seems like he's getting kind of just not paid attention to. Plus 4,000 for Webb Simpson. Sia, anything to add or anybody that you really, really like in this 9K range?
I like how Steven has chimed in and made fun of, because I was about to, made fun of Joel's pronunciation of Augusta. He says, like,
I wasn't going to do it.
Oh, you
So
were
in
do it?
fairness,
I wasn't going to do it. You can
In
do it.
fairness,
I should have texted you.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Steven is my friend, and
okay.
and I do that on purpose because when I first started doing it, it was not on purpose. I was just being an idiot, and everyone made fun of me. So now it's just a natural thing that I do on purpose. I mispronounce it, and everyone makes fun of it. So I knew I have a bunch of friends listening, and so that was kind of my way to shout out my friends who are all kind of dialed into that.
That's fantastic. All right,
I like that.
I'm buying that story 100%.
I'm not. I'm definitely not, but
I'm
I
also
like
very
it. I
gullible,
appreciate it. Yeah, it's pretty good.
So
Wait.
Okay.
We have a mayor's bet. I need to bring up this. Everybody loves a good mayor's bet. I haven't read it, so we're reading it straight up on air for the first time. Joel wins versus Michael's lineup. Okay. Joel, oh, this is unfair already. Joel wins. Michael shaves his mustache. Oh, if Sal wins, Joel has to wear. I don't understand what any of this means. Is this one of your friends, Joel?
Oracle glasses.
Sorry, just
Okay.
ignore it.
Okay,
Don't
because I
ignore
didn't
them
understand
because
that.
they're
So,
big, but yes, those are my friends.
we're gonna run
I
right
like
by
this.
that one.
As long as I don't have anything on the line.
Yeah, I don't like this. So, Sia, talk to me about this 9K range.
Okay, so I'll just be real quick. I mean, Joel covered it pretty well. I like Xander. I mean, I think a lot of people like Xander. His ownership percentage is in that like 17-18% range. That's probably about where it's going to be. I mean, the guy doesn't miss cuts at majors. I mean, if you look at the last 3 years, he hasn't missed a cut at a major from what I remember. So he's great tee to green. I mean, he's just he could be in the 10,000 range. If he was 10,000 or 10,100, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. I mean, Xander's just been really good lately. I'll probably be fading Brooks. I just don't trust him at this point. And honestly, he's tracking at around 15%. That seems kind of high to me. So I'm happy to fade him. Patrick Cantlay is interesting. I'm not usually on him. He was 9th here last year. He was first at the Zozo, which just was a few weeks back, and he played really well. So that's somebody to consider, but I'm not going to have many shares of him. Colin, for the same, I'm largely going to be fading people who don't have course experience, much like Joel is. So Colin Morikawa, I like. If I'm doing 20 lineups, I might have a share or two, have him in 2 lineups, but it's not a big play for me at all. Hatton, I like. Webb Simpson, I like, and just for the same reasons that Joel likes. And because he's small, he's short. I guess he's kind of small too, but because he's short, like that doesn't absolutely disqualify him, because you'll see once we get down into the 7 and 8 and 6K guys, there's some guys that you're going to have to take that are kind of short, but have, good course experience and are just flat out good golfers. I like Patrick Reed a lot. I don't think Joel mentioned him. He has a green jacket for one, and he has the game to like really put it together on this particular course. And by the way, you need to putt well here, and he can be a really hot putter. So I'm all about Patrick Reed. A lot of people are. He's tracking about 17-18%. Probably no shares of Tiger, maybe 1 out of 20 lineups. I mean, I'm not going to be invested there. Bubba Watson is popular. I kind of like him, but he's kind of getting a little too popular, so might be a fade for me. But that's the guys I like in the 9K range. The guys I'm going to be on more than others are probably Xander, Webb Simpson, Patrick Reed, and Hatton. Those are be like my core in the 9K range.
I like that. And just a couple of things of note, the last couple of weeks, I've liked to do this and just kind of compare the DFS prices versus the actual betting odds. Same book, so it's all DraftKings. And Patrick Reed is at plus 3,000. He's actually tied with Jason Day at plus 3,000, as well as Hideki Matsuyama. So we haven't said we just said Patrick Reed's name, but we haven't said Matsuyama or Jason Day. So those are two things. As you said, Sia, you were kind of on Day. The only reason I bring that up is because Day is significantly less expensive. I think 8,400 it looks like. So you can get him at a lot cheaper. So that's something to pay attention to. Morikawa does have pretty solid odds. Xander Schauffele's odds, looking at it plus 1,600. So the books think he can win too. He's the fifth best odds there. So it's always just something interesting to pay attention to. And yes, man, baby Patrick Reed plus 3,000. As I said, something to pay attention to there. Sia though, plus 4,500 on Tiger Woods. Tell me you're going to put $2 on that for me.
God, no. Okay, I'll tell you what I will do though. If I do a showdown lineup for day one, I'll put Tiger in there, and I might put a couple bucks on Tiger Woods' first round leader. Why not? Okay. I mean, he certainly has the pedigree on this course. The thing about Tiger, much like guys like, I don't know, Fowler, Jordan Spieth, or even Brooks, I don't really trust them to do it for 4 days. I especially don't like Tiger to do it for 4 days, given how bad he's been this particular year, since the restart, let's say. So, yeah, I mean, put $2 on first round leader. I haven't looked at his odds for first round leader because I have other guys I'm interested in. Stay tuned to the end of the show. Ooh. But, yeah, a couple bucks on Tiger just so I can root for him on day one. That sounds fun. Let's do that.
It's fun, right?
I have a prediction for Sia. So here's what I think is going to happen. I think Tiger's not going to be all that great to start. But start heading into day 3, he's going to start creeping up. And I think Sia's going to start getting excited. And I think he's going to make a live weekend bet for Tiger to win the tournament when he starts seeing Tiger being competitive. That's what my prediction.
I like that.
I love that because that's sort of what I do. And B, if you like any of the top 5 or 6 or 7 guys that have kind of short odds, your Xanders, your DJs, your Brysons, wait for them to wait for one of those guys you like to kind of choke on Thursday. And Thursday night when they're 6, 7 shots back, or maybe 5, and they've got instead of 11-1, they're 30-1. That's when you take those guys.
And it's always fun to watch the books. They react very quickly. Right. If you have a guy that has, longer odds and he gets a birdie on the first hole, somehow those odds, it feels like they get cut in half. And then same thing for those top guys. For whatever reason, the books just kind of snap their fingers and those odds change completely. What were you going to say, Sia?
Well, depending on your book. So if you can live bet, whether it's DraftKings or another book you might use, if you can live bet day 1, so anybody starting on hole 10 is going to have a tougher time because it's a split tees than starting on hole 1. And 10, 11, and 12 are really hard holes. So you could have, let's say, Justin Thomas. Let's say the tee times are out. I just haven't really looked at them. I don't know who's starting on 10 and who's starting on 1, but anybody could look that up like literally right now. So
please,
Justin Thomas, let's say he's starting on 10 and he doubles and then pars and then it hits a gets a bogey on 12. All of a sudden he goes from whatever he is now, 10-1 or 12-1 to like 25-1 in an instant because he's +3 and he can make that up the rest of the way day 1. So those are things to consider. Like there are parts of this course, the ones I just mentioned, that are really tough and that you can take advantage of poor play on those 3 holes because they're probably going to come back.
I love it. So one thing of note that I forgot to mention in Steven's first article, Steven wrote 2 articles this week. C is going to write 2 as well, which is fantastic. C already has one out. Steven does as well. Something happened with the cut. It's top 50 players. Normally it's top 50 plus anybody that's within 10 strokes, if I'm not mistaken. They got rid of that within 10 strokes. So it's just a top 50 and everyone that's tied, and we get rid of it there. So I think that's just something of note, something to pay attention to. And so Rich has asked a couple questions. So far, none of them have been good, but now, Steven, Rich, whoops. Steven asks a good question. Thank you, Steven. We appreciate you. How do you guys think the timing will impact the Masters with it being at the end of the season? Now, it is Georgia, so it's not, freezing cold or anything, but Joel, we'll start with you. He's probably one of your friends, so he probably wants to hear your answer most. How do you actually think it will affect some of these golfers? And again, looking at past performances, I don't know how much of a difference the landscape's going to be, but it's going to be a little colder. I don't know. Winds might be different at Augusta in November versus April. You could tell me. So how do you think it's going to change?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thanks, Dov. So basically, the way I'm looking at it is it's going to, the bigger factor is less this season and more it's going to rain, and the rain is probably going to affect distance. So it probably means you want to target a little bit more of your longer guys. That is a little bit of advantage for Bryson, but don't forget, people I think overplay Bryson for that. Yes, he's by far the longest hitter. There's no question about it. He crushes the ball. But there's a lot of other long hitters that aren't that far behind him that people just kind of ignore. And they're like, Bryson's the one big guy. And that's when you're thinking of distance, you go Bryson. So let's not forget, DJ is long. then there's guys that are lower down that aren't big names that are also long. If you're looking at that as an advantage, then target those guys, right? So, the guy that Michael loves, Kokrak, right? He hits it long. His form is really good. So like Cameron Champ, I think Cameron Champ, for a number of reasons that we'll get to him in a minute, is one of the sleeper plays I like a lot this week, and I'll get into why and some of the things I'm seeing with him. But he's one of the longest guys on tour, and like that's never talked about because he gets overshadowed by Bryson. So take a look at some other those guys. The deeper plays that maybe won't be as popular because everyone hears distance and think Bryson, but those guys will have more of an advantage because of the rain. I think it being in the fall is weird. The changing the season is weird, but I don't think it'll have too much an effect other than the fact that it's going to rain, and I think that will make a bit of a difference.
And no azaleas. Sia, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I subscribe. I second.
Yes, subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening to the podcast, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube as well. If you're checking us out there, we could really appreciate it. We're almost up to 500 subscribers. So when we get to 500, we'll do a giveaway. Let's call it 3-month membership for free to WinDailySports.com Gold membership. There, I said it. I spoke it into existence. Get us to 500 people.
Fun.
Get us
wait,
to
hold on. Okay, first of all, let's clarify, because we're talking about our YouTube page, not Twitter. So if people think the Win Daily Sports Twitter has 500 people following it, that sounds like
10,000 people follow that one. Yeah.
So, okay, let's distinguish there. And B, if we're close to 500 and we're giving away 3 months, let's shoot for like 600. We're almost at 500 on YouTube.
Yeah, we're shooting for 600 now, guys.
Boom.
Reverse. All right, cool. Let's shoot for 600 and we give you a free 3-month membership to WinDailySports.com Gold membership. Gotta love it. All right, so this show is taking hella long, but it is the Masters and I'm having an absolute blast with you guys. Unfortunately, we have a pretty hard stop tonight, which is the ironic part, but let's move on. Sia, talk to me about this 8K range, because we're gonna have to get a couple of these guys in some of our lineups, right?
I guess, unless you're going stars and scrubs, and then you're going to jam in like 3 elite guys, and then you're going to dip down into the 7 and the 6K range, which Joel has advised against. And I don't disagree with Joel. I think you should probably, again, I don't think anybody's playing one lineup when they're doing, DraftKings or FanDuel, not mostly DraftKings. So if you're doing 10, maybe do 5 stars and scrubs and 5 that are like a little bit more even-handed. But I can tell you that it's very appealing to do the stars and scrubs thing, because the guys in the 6K range, like guys that Joel just mentioned, or like a Cory Connors, for example, or even like a Victor Perez or Harding, who did well here last year. Like there's a lot of guys you could be like, yeah, I could see it. And then all of a sudden you've got, Bryson, Justin Thomas, and, can't land your lineup with a bunch of scrubs. So you can go either way. I don't know that I have a hard recommendation, but let's go 8K here. Guys I like. I don't think I'm going to be on Adam Scott, but I don't not like him. Again, I just have to be a little selective with who I'm taking. And so I don't think I'm going to be on Adam Scott. A lot of people are going to be on Tony Finau. So he's coming in with good form. His last 2 Masters, he's been great. I think with a 5th and a 10th place. The problem is, so the good thing about Finau is he's only 8,800. The problem is, like, he's getting sweated so hard at this ownership percentage, which is already exceeded 20%. He's like tracking towards 25%. And this is a guy who's only won the Puerto Rico Open. Like, so the win equity isn't, in my opinion, yes, he's been playing well. And I think people think he has the game to win, but I'm not really seeing it. That doesn't mean you should fade him. He's only 8,800 on DraftKings. That's fine. But, I don't, there's too many people going all in on Tony Finau, and I'm not necessarily buying it. I'll have a few shares, but he's not one of my favorite guys. Hideki's another popular guy. Again, he just always seems to flail and never be the guy that people think he is. But I got to admit, he's reasonably priced. Matthew Wolff is a guy I'm usually on. He looks like he's really popular, but he doesn't check the box for me for a prior, player at the Masters at Augusta, if you will. And, more importantly, his game hasn't been as fantastic lately as it was a couple months ago. So Jason Day, I like 7th last week, good track record at the Masters. If his vertigo and his back hold up, fingers crossed, he'll be fine. And in the 8K range, the only other guys, that's it. Actually, that's it in the 8K range. So basically, just to recap, I like Jason Day, maybe a share of Matthew Wolff, but not a big fan. Couple shares of Tony Finau, maybe a share of Adam Scott. If you haven't gleaned it already, like, I'm not going to be heavily invested in this 8K range.
I have gleamed it. Joel, how do you feel about this 8K range?
So C and I are a little different here. I like this 8K range. I think this is how I'm doing my hybrid, right? It's your stars, a couple guys here, and then we can avoid maybe to go all the way down low. So two guys I really like here are Finau and Matsuyama. So I agree with seeing that Finau's not going to win the tournament. So if you're picking Finau to think he's going to win, that's unlikely. However, he's good. I think he could easily get a top 10. And at this price range, that's good enough. Like if you have the winner and Finau as a top 10, you're going to cash and win money this week. And that's how I'm playing him, as like a above average guy who's pretty good form. Course history here is strong, as tied for 5th last year, tied for 10th the year before that. He's done well at the Masters, and he's long. So his length is going to help him in these wet conditions, especially on this course where you get birdies. So I think the one thing that is turning me off to him is the fact that his ownership keeps going up, and it's hard to play guys at high ownership in GPPs because all that means is you have to do better than 20 other percent of the pool if you're right on them, and if you're wrong, then it's just a complete waste anyway. So what was the point? So I like Finau for that reason, but the guy I love most in this range is Hideki Matsuyama. So hear me out, all right? Matsuyama is a guy that typically, like, he needs to get over a hump and get a major. It's time, and it kind of feels like things are starting to really, like, fall into place for him this week. So if you look at it, like, his past history at the Masters is really strong. Last year, tied for 32, but before that, he is 19, 11, 7, and 5. He's done really well on this course. His game suits it, and he's coming in. Like, his recent form is there. I mean, he was tied for 2nd at the Houston Open last week. He didn't play at the Munoz. Then he was tied for 28th, tied for 21st. I mean, he's consistent. Listen, it's a lot to ask somebody to win the Masters. It's hard to make that prediction, but this certainly does feel like a week where things are starting to align for him. He's scrapping. I think this could be a good spot where he shows up. Again, he's one of the guys, check the ownership. If it's up over 25%, then I will be less onto him. But if he keeps his ownership well below Finau's, then I think he's going to be definitely a nice play in this range. Now, Wolf, I'm going to go ahead and immediately contradict what I just said 10 minutes ago about Morikawa. Didn't like Morikawa because he has no course history, and they say it's really hard to get adjusted to these greens your first time playing it. Wolf doesn't have a course history. He's going to have a hard time adjusting to these greens the first time playing it. But I feel a little safer going with him because the significant salary relief at this price point. His distance is a lot better than Morikawa, so if you're looking at that statistic, it's going to play out well at the Masters here. And he's been playing like an elite golfer this year, right? Like, he's got plenty of top 10, top 20 finishes. It almost feels like he's due for a major this season, and this could be the one that maybe he pulls one out. So not going to be a high share of him, but definitely not going to be fading Wolf by any means this week. And then the last three guys in this range I'm going to mention are Jason Day. Jason Day's been playing really well recently. His Masters history is really strong. He was tied for 5th last year, tied for 20, tied for 22, tied for 10. He's always does well here, and those are the guys you want to target. I know Sia is going to be a little scared by his injuries, and rightfully so, especially in questionable weather, but I think it's worth the risk because he has the potential to significantly surpass his value based on price this week. Now, the controversial ones that I'm going to mention and the ones that will be fun to talk about are Spieth and Fowler. So, listen, Spieth is like laughable at this point, right? It's like his price range could have been in the 6,000s and no one would have bet. And I'd be like, yeah, I guess he stinks. Why not? Right?
He was like in the 6,000s a couple weeks ago in like a real shit field, wasn't he? It was like,
exactly,
oh, God.
Yeah, it was bad. He ended up, and you know what? He didn't even do that well. He got like 40th, but because he scores well for DraftKings, right? He got a lot of birdies, eagles, things like that. He ended up being good enough for you to cash on. So for that reason, one stat to know about Spieth is he's never done worse than tied for 21st at the Masters. Never done worse. So it means that's the worst he's ever done at this course. At this price, if he gets tied for 21, that's going to cash. Now, his form that we've seen recently is pathetic, and it's hard to play someone like that right now. But if we're going off course history, and his recent form is like slightly less pathetic than it was earlier in the year, so it's like it's improving. So if you're going off that, I think there's some ways where at points Spieth could be interesting. And Fowler. So Fowler, as you guys know, I'm usually like, no, please, like move on. I have no interest in Fowler. This week, I'm thinking, yes, I'm gonna play some Fowler, and the reason is similar to Spieth. These guys have incredible Masters history, and that is so important on this course because it has these unique challenges that some guys can figure out and some guys can't, and they've proven they can figure it out, and they've done well consistently on this course. So if you want to just do a quick highlight of Fowler's history, tied for 9th, 2, tied for 11, cut, tied for 12. That's really strong. That's as good as you're going to get outside the top 6 elite guys. So if you want to go off course history, and we're using that as one of the main factors, then he's got to be one of the guys that you're looking at for this week. And then the same exact applies to Paul Casey as well. He's not as a kind of starstruck type guy that's going to turn a lot of heads to talk about, but Paul Casey has an incredible course history. I mean, he missed the cut last year, but tied for 15, 6, 4, and 6. So if you're targeting Tark history at $8,000, his recent form is not there, but this is certainly a guy that has done well at this course and could be a nice way for you to kind of round out your lineups this week.
I love it. My grandma's gonna love it too. She loves Ricky Fowler, and he has to win eventually. That I'm gonna I'm gonna die on that hill. At some point, the dude has to win a major, right? I don't know which one it is. It'd be pretty cool if it was the Masters and he was wearing like a really cool green shirt, and then they put that green jacket on him, but it was like 2 totally different shades of green. I'm all for it, Sia. I am all for that. And Joel, just again, I do want to repeat. The odds for Hideki Matsuyama are better than most people. I mean, he's tied with Patrick Reed and Jason Day, right behind Patrick Cantlay, but ahead of Finau, Watson, Morikawa, Simpson, Wolf, Woods, Scott, Fleetwood. I mean, he's up there. So, I mean, the odds, they do agree with you. And again, this is something that we like to say because, hey, they know more than we do. They really, really do. So if you see complete price differentials on the DFS side, it's at least something to take into account. If his odds are that good to win the championship and his price is, what do we have, 8,700, and he's behind Tiger Woods at 91 and Patrick Reed at 92 and Webb Simpson at 93, there's something there. So it's something to pay attention to, maybe a tiebreaker at some point. So I think that's just something to pay attention to. And yes, one more time, Jordan Spieth should have won 2 Masters, I think. Completely blew that. That was bad. That was real bad. And really hasn't been the same. So it's kind of sad, but it is what it is. Joel, I really do like when your friends are here because they actually keep the chat nice and going. There's some funny comments here. Yes, you did miss Bubba. I think we said his name earlier. You being the star of the yeah. Joel, being the star of the show, should Win Daily supply him with a real microphone? Joe, what I will say is Joel has won more money playing DFS showdowns this year than I've probably made in the last 3 years of my life. So if Joel can't pony up for an $80 microphone, that's just the way it's going to be here. It's just the way it's going to be here.
And Joey knows that because he was at my house every time I've won to celebrate. So we had a tradition. He had to be here. So because it was basically good luck. So with that being said, Joey should come over this weekend for the Masters.
Yeah, so Joel can buy a microphone.
Joe, I live in Fort Lauderdale. I can pay your airfare as long as I win 100,000 or 50,000.
I think you'd take a cool 10K. I'm sure you wouldn't be angry about that.
Yeah, so. But you do the math on the airfare, and I don't know Joe, and I don't know. It's just it might be weird. Yeah. Anyway,
yeah, what are you gonna do? Anyway.
Yeah. Joey's in Florida right now, so he can just drive.
Oh shit!
Perfect.
Yeah, good.
All right, let's go.
Throw him like $20 for gas, and I'm sure he can make it there, right? That's pretty easy. Florida's just one big place anyway. All right, let's move on to the 7K range. Joel, Joel, we'll start with you. Talk to me a little bit about this range, because I know, again, you're going to have to be here as well, because you don't want to dip too deep into that 6K.
So I like this range. I know we're getting short on time, so I'm going to go through it quickly just so everyone knows my plays, but here's what we're thinking. In the 7K range, first guy, Louis O. Louis O is he's got a flair for the dramatic, right? He shows up in big tournaments. This is a big tournament. You're getting him at 7,900, which should be a value for him. So that's the reason why I'm liking him. His course history is above average, especially for this price. He's got 3 top 20s in the last 5 out, so definitely someone to target there. Scotty Sheffler, I think, is probably one of the biggest price discrepancies, right? We've been looking at him at 9,000, 800. Now we're getting him at 7,800. His form hasn't fallen off the cliff, right? He's been playing well. I think the biggest thing that scares me about him is his lack of course history, right? He's young. He hasn't played too many tournaments here. So I don't know if he's going to be able to figure out the greens or if that's going to give him a really hard time. So I'm not going to have overly exposed to him, but I think he's definitely a nice way for you to get some value as a guy that easily could have been in the 8,000s, 8,500 here at 7,800. Justin Rose is interesting because his history is also spectacular. Unfortunately, 2019, he missed the cut, but go back before that, tied for 12th, second, tied for 10th, tied for second. That's spectacular. His recent form up until last week was poor, but then last week he did pretty well. And he's one of those guys that he's not usually the type of guy there's the guys like Billy Horschel who they get hot and they continue that streak, week and week, a few weeks in a row, that hot streak. Justin Rose is one of those guys that could be 3 missed cuts and then win a tournament. So he's one of those, this could be it. This could be where he pops. He's starting to show a little bit more form. So definitely one of the a good play. If you're looking at guys in this range, he's definitely one of the ones to target. Another one, similar play to a similar theory with Sheffler is Matthew Fitzpatrick. He feels underpriced here. That's the biggest thing. He feels like he should be $1,000 more. He has a course history. He's played this course, tied for 21, 38, 32, and 7. So good enough where he can certainly perform. And the one thing about Fitz that he has a reputation for is he tends to excel on more difficult courses. That is certainly should come into play. This isn't going to be like the toughest course of the year by no means, but this is a type of some more rainy condition where he usually kind of differentiates himself from the field. So I think he's a really interesting spot this week from there. I'll mention Answer. I know Seal will talk about him as well. I think I like him at this price. I don't love him, but definitely like him. I'm not playing too much Gary Woodland, but I do want to mention him just because his form is terrible. And that's why it's hard to play him. But he's a guy that earlier in this year, he was in the 9,000s as a price. And now he's 73 and no one's batting an eye. So he's got the talent to compete, but doesn't have a good history here. His form's terrible. I'm not going to be playing him. But just a guy that's price really dipped a lot within a couple of months. So that's something to keep an eye on. Cameron Smith, I liked a lot heading into today. I was one of my favorite value plays. I'm coming a little bit off of him because of how high his ownership looks. So I want to see what it gets to it by the end of the week. If he's going to be 90% owned, no, he's not going to be 90% owned, but if he's going to be 20% owned or something like that, it's not as attractive to play him. But if we're getting him below 15%, then he's one of the better value plays in the below 7,500 range. And then one of the more interesting plays, I'm going to touch on Kokrak and Kisner first. Kisner is a great putter. And I think he's just a better golfer than his price is giving him credit for. So if you want a low salary guy to get interesting, he's certainly someone you can plug in with some of a few stars that will help you get there. Because any tournament, Kisner can easily kind of finish in the top 15 or 20, and at this price range, that will help you get GPP. And Kokrak has been in unreal form. He hits it really long if you want to target long drivers because of the conditions and the course. And his recent form, all things are aligning for Kokrak. The only concern with him is this will be a new course for him, so he might not have a feel for it like we said with some of those other guys. But the guy I saved for last in this range that I really wanted to touch on was Champ. Same thing with Champ. He doesn't have the history, but the difference with him, the reason why I wanted to save him is there's a few things. The first that made him stand out that really got him on my eye is looking at his betting odds. He's up there with your Spieths, your Fowlers. He's up there with the guys that are $1,000 more. And if you're going to get that salary relief in DFS, right, it seems like he's a really good value. He's probably the second longest hitter on tour after Bryson. So in terms of length, he checks that box. His recent form is box check as well because he's playing pretty well. I mean, he didn't play the last two tournaments, but they were small, no-name tournaments anyway. He played at the Zozo, got 8th, and there were some names in there. So I like Champ a lot. He's probably one of my favorite value plays in this range.
I love that. And yes, that's why we look at those odds, because again, if he's coming up close to some of those other guys, I think that part is very, very important. We just got a question, Sanjay M at 7,500. He's one of your friends, so I feel like you should probably answer him, Joel. How do you feel about Sanjay?
Listen, he's definitely a fair play. I don't have anything. I wouldn't tell you to fade him by any means. He's just like in a more crowded field. He's not. I don't see him as someone that can win the tournament. So like, if you want to play him as someone that might get you 30th place and round out as you have a couple top 10 finishers at a higher price, that's fine. But I like him more of a cash play than I do as a GPP.
I love it. I love it. I love it. See it.
I'll tell you to fade him just because he has no course history and he hasn't been that good. And there's so many other guys in the 7K range that I would like better than him. So unless you're playing like 20, 30 lineups, I just don't see a space for Sungjae M.
Love it. See, what about the rest of the 7K range?
Okay, so I like Louis. I agree with Joel on Louis. I'm not going to be on Scotty or Justin Rose. I'm going to go through this quick. I like Matthew Fitzpatrick as well. Listen, he's been really good off the tee, really good on approach. He kind of shows up at tournaments like this, although he did miss the cut at the U.S. Open. So I agree he's probably mispriced. I agree with Joel on that. Skipping right over Phil, right over Sungjae. I like Answer, but I don't think he has course history here either. So he's probably going to be in one of my outright and first round leader plays, and that sounds a little contradictory, but the point is I'm not going to be heavily invested in him for DFS purposes. But I do like his game, and honestly his game fits pretty well for this course, so that could be considered an underpriced too. By the way, his ownership is like 5-6%, so that's pretty solid. The other guys I like, I think Cam Smith is good. He's definitely popular. Shane Lowry I like a little bit. The rest of these guys I'm not on until we get to a couple shorter hitters. I do like Kokrak, by the way, but a couple shorter hitters that I like that I think are going to show up at the Masters. Kevin Kisner and Ian Poulter. Both have similar games. Kisner has been really good at the Masters. His track record is excellent in terms of making cuts. And Ian Poulter's is really good too. He was 12th at the Masters last year. And by the way, recent form is good. He was 12th at the CJ Cup. So those are the 7K range guys I like.
Yeah, Poulter 5th at the PGA Championship as well. So the European PGA Championship is still kind of cool. Means something, I guess.
Something to be said for that.
Yeah, I think better than I could ever do, right? Kokrak, very long first-time starter? Question mark? I guess. Yes.
I don't understand the question.
Neither do I. I'm going to go with yes, though, because it seems like both of you guys like him, and I love his name. So I think we're all on Kokrak this week. If only Taylor Gooch was here so we could have the triumph. No, that's only two. The duality of man right there. Let us move on.
Oh,
See what he got.
I think he means course history with Kokrak, and that's actually a good point because he doesn't have course history here. I'm assuming that's what he's asking. So
yeah,
no
I
course
think so.
history to go on. Okay, my bad. I didn't realize.
First-time starter? That's where the inflection of my voice came from? Question mark? Thanks, Austin. Austin likes my mustache. I appreciate you. All right, so let's get to it. The 6K range. This is where Sia really loves to show out. He's going to have Sia's secret weapon. How do you get Sia's secret weapon? You go to windailysports.com/chat. You get 7 free days in our expert Discord chat. And that is where Sia will tell you where his secret weapon comes in. His secret weapon is under 7K, under 5% owned, and 21-2 on the season for not just making the cut, but doing pretty damn well. So finding a significant amount of value where you like to see it. From Sia, do you see what I did there? Sia, this has been fun. Talk to me a little bit about the 6K range. I know Joel's going to have a couple of these guys because he's really doing this weird ass like stars and scrubs and then some other dudes lineup. But Sia, talk to me a little bit about this 6K range. Who are some of the guys outside of your secret weapon, windailysports.com/chat, that you will like?
Okay, by the way, I loved your pun, but you're going to like my puns tomorrow because I have a bunch for Tua. So the NFL show tomorrow, like, just, hold your breath.
Is one of them Tua and O?
2 in a row. I got to work on it. But you see the point. You see
I see where we go.
All right, so listen, 6K guys I like. I know we're up against it a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of name the guys that I like. A few of them are in my article, by the way. And Antonio and Patrick and Steven are going to have articles too. And of course, Joel's going to be in the Discord chat to talk about all these guys. But let's see. The top end of the 6K range, I don't really like at all. But Siwoo Kim, I like. This is a guy that can kind of blow up. We saw that recently where he was, the leader on Sunday and just had an incredibly terrible front nine. So, but his game is good for here. And by the way, he's 15% owned, which for a 6,800 guy is saying something. So that's both good news and bad news. It's validating him, but he's obviously popular. Could be considered bad chalk in that sense. So just be careful there. Sebastian Munoz, another guy that's popular, 15% owned, but he really does have the game here. I'm definitely going to have some shares of him. Kevin Na, I kind of liked, even though he's a short hitter, but him saying he had the back injury, all I can think of is Justin Jackson and David Johnson. I'm not going through that again. Lanto Griffin has been really good. He's right around 10% owned. That's kind of high, but he's been really good. And at 6,600, I don't see a problem with taking a stab there. Christian Bezettinhout, I've always liked him. Great on approach, not great off the tee. So that's going to be something you're just going to have to hold your breath on. But at 2% ownership, 6,600, I think he's got to take a shot at. Victor Perez, I think, is a decent play. And as I'm sort of scanning down the list, I did mention Justin Harding already. There was one other guy I thought I liked down here really low, but I think that's it. I think that's going to kind of round out the 6K range for me. And yeah, Dylan Fratelli, I don't think I'm usually – a lot of people like JT Poston. I'll say that. I'm not a Poston guy, but when I'm listening to a lot of like podcasts and stuff, he has a lot of momentum. He's in good recent form, but that's not going to be for me. That's the 6K range for me.
I like it. Joel, talk to me a little bit. And then when I'm done, I have two guys that I want to ask each of you about. So I'll just going to say that. Talk to me, Joel. What do you like?
Jordan Spieth. Please be Jordan Spieth. Please be Jordan. No.
So at this range, what's interesting is this is how you create the stars and scrubs / hybrid, right? This is how you do it. You avoid this range as much as you can. So I only have a few plays.
I gotta stop you. I gotta stop you, Joel. I'm pretty confident this is just called a lineup at that point. You can't just start throwing shit out there and just be like, oh, this is now a hybrid stars. Yeah. No, it's not. It's just a lineup at that point.
No. Very
no. Joel's right. Joel's right. You're wrong.
All right. This is the strategy. This is the Stars and Scrub hybrid lineup, and you got to understand it. I get it. Listen, you don't play as much as we do, so it's hard for you guys.
I just don't get it. Clearly,
I get it.
Can't grasp the concept.
Not your fault. Not your fault at all. I'll get you there. Anyway, though, in this range, I think that the guys, if I have to target, if I have to go here that I'm looking at, the first guy I want to mention is Erik van Rooyen. The only reason I like him is because he's coming off pretty good form and he hits it long. So those two boxes are checked, but no recent history means if you are going to play him, keep it at a low percentage. Don't overplay him this week for sure. Kim, Zach Johnson. Zach Johnson has a top 10 here in the past. He usually does pretty well. His recent form is, hit or miss. He's done really well this year in some tournaments. He's kind of like up and down. I like him for GPP because he has the capabilities of being top 10. And, that's how you're going to win a big field. So for that, if you want to sprinkle him in a few lineups, I like it. One of my favorite plays in this range, though, is Sebastian Munoz. The only thing turning me off to him is really the fact that he's going to be pretty chalky. It's hard to play a guy in the 6K range that's going to be very highly owned. So if his ownership percentage stays below or at least around 15%, I'll definitely have a lot of them. But I don't want to get into him too much if he's around the 20% range. I do think Cory Connors is interesting. He's a guy I typically never play, but I think this week his long hitting and the fact that he's typically a terrible putter and he's been putting well recently could bode well for him. However, his lack of doing anything well at this course in the past is definitely a concern. If you guys listen to the show weekly, we mentioned Francisco Molinari last week because of what happened last night.
That was one of my guys. That was one of my guys I was going to ask you about.
So I'm glad to be able to quickly touch on him. His form, I don't even know what it is. He's like nowhere to be found. He barely just started playing the game. It's very confusing. It's like DraftKings knew because they priced him down with all the scrubs. And when he did play, he was good, but now he's just not good. So I don't know. Last year he was tied for 5th. The year before that, tied for 20th, tied for 3rd. So if course history is what you're going off of at this price, it's definitely there. If recent form is what you're going off of, it's definitely not there. So you got to pick what your poison is and how you want to risk it for the biscuit, I should say.
Nice.
And then, thank you. And then the last kind of guy that I want to touch on this right now, I'm going to go all the way down. Justin Harding's interesting because he got a tied for 12th last year. Jimmy Walker, if you want to just go off course history, as someone at 6,300 has a title for 36, 20, 18, 29, 38. So consistently making cuts, and at this price range, that could be really valuable. And I actually do like JT posted just because I think I read somewhere he's a guy with a pulse at 6,300 that can compete, but with no course history, he's definitely not someone to love. If you got to plug and play someone down here, then maybe he's one of the guys to consider.
I like that. Now we're just saying that these guys are alive, so it's worth to play them. This is the analysis you get coming over and listening and watching to the Win Daily Sports Show Masters Breakdown. Yes, Francisco Molinari was going to be one of the questions I asked the two of you, considering he was in the lead in the Masters on the 4th day. He then had some terrible shots towards the end and pretty much just fell apart. You kind of saw it on his face the whole time. Everybody knew that there was no shot he was going to win. He looked like he was legitimately pooping his pants the entire time. That's how terrified this poor guy was. So it's sad, but yeah, he ended up finishing 5th. I think that's something important. And we have Jerry chiming in. He was leading last year until hitting into the crick on 12. Yes, it was the crick. The crick got him. Pretty unfortunate. So I think that's something to pay attention to there. And then the other guy, I just wanted to just try and say his last name because I think we're all good friends. Jazz Jawatanarand. So that was fun. So he's a guy too. He's got a pulse. Does that mean you can? Don't take him. All right. He has a pulse though, so I do want to say that. All right. So let's get to the fun part. Let's talk about some betting. What do we got? Boys, we're going to go over some outrights, then we're going to switch to our first round leaders, and we're all going to love it, and we're going to finish it in the next 7 minutes. Sia, talk to me. Who are you taking to outright win the Masters?
Couple things for those of you that are subscribers. I'm also going to have an article with some heads up matches and some other betting options, maybe some top 20s. I might consult with Joel on that as well. But so stay tuned for that. That'll probably be tomorrow on windailysports.com. If you're not already subscribed, what are you doing? Okay, so here's the thing. Outrights. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned Cory Connors. I also like him. I mentioned him earlier in the show, but I don't know if I mentioned him in the 6K range. The one thing I'll say about, him not being very impressive in terms of his track record. He's only played once and he made the cut, finished 46th. That's not bad. I'll take that like marginal experience over no experience, if you know what I'm getting at, versus your Collins and your Matthew Wolfs who don't have any experience. So anyway, I do like him as well. My outrights, I'll be quick here. Winner. I only have 4 here. Patrick Reed at 30-1, Matthew Fitzpatrick at 66-1, Abraham Answer at 125-1. If he can get over that no experience hump, I mean, he's competed at these major tournaments before. He even won one. So at 125-1, that's good. And then Lonto Griffin at 200-1, I think is fun. These are bets you can put in pre-flop. And then, as the tournament goes, put in some live bets for some guys that might have even better chances than the guys I just mentioned. Some live bets if they fall off a little bit.
Yes. And just of note, and the reason why I definitely wanted to bring up Francisco Molinari, he has better odds to win than Abraham Answer. So not that is, it's not like we're breaking news yet, but it's definitely something to pay attention to. Definitely something to pay attention to. So 200-1, guys, come on. All we're asking, just put a single dollar on there. That's literally it. And then just one last thing before we hop over to you, Joel, a good friend, Zach, who writes our NHL for us. So we're going to see him pretty soon again. Mike Weir. Yeah, I'm actually really excited for other sports. Mike Weir apparently took the other Canadians out to Augusta to get them adjusted, and Cory Connors was a part of that group. So thank you, Zach. Zach is our resident Canadian, along with Alan. And Ghost. Shit, we got a lot of Canadians here at Win Daily Sports. We love you all. Joel, talk to me. Who are some of your outright bets?
Well, first, I just want to comment. I love how Zach spelled Augusta. That's very accurate. So
it's pretty Canadian of him, eh?
Fair. For outrights this week, I have 4 guys. If you want to go real fun, long shot, Munoz 200-1. Put $1. That's going to be exciting, right? 2-1 is good. Another kind of medium range shot, Rose. Right, going back to that history, he's got it. He usually pops in a spot. Maybe this is the one. He might be due for a victory here, so he's at 80-1. I like Matsuyama getting his first play at 31. And if you notice, all my betting bets have kind of a bit of a storyline to them, right? So that's how I'm kind of picking my outrights. And the last but not least, if you're going storyline betting, going to the favorites, let's get the career Grand Slam, and let's get Rory at 13-1 and close the loop.
I love it. Yeah, you told me the story. I felt it. I could feel it. It was just beautiful. You're a great storyteller, Joel. I'll give you that.
Thank you.
Sia, talk to me a little bit. Who are some of our first round leaders? And one of them's Tiger. So who are the rest of our first round leaders?
Okay, Tony Finau 33-1. Abraham Answer 66-1. I'll admit this isn't like the best pick here for first round leader since he has no course experience. Call this Abraham Answer thing more of a hunch than anything else. Again, I won't be overweight on him in DFS. This is just outright first round leader stuff. Jason Kokrak at 66-1. Sebastian Munoz at 90-1. Christian Bezuidenhout at 100-1. And I don't know if you guys are ready. I'm going to break news right now. But the first round leader at the Masters 2 days from now, and I can see the future, 2 days from now, your first round leader at 80-1, first round leader of the Masters is Si Woo Kim. 80-1. Book it. Count it. Good if it goes. We got one.
Good if it goes. I like that. All right. Si Woo Kim, you will be getting $2 of my dollars. Because of you, Si Woo Kim, I will be giving $2 of my dollars to DraftKings and not expecting anything in return. Joel, who are some of your first round leaders for the Masters?
Yeah, so I'm giving 3 first round leader plays. One's a big long shot that is really just if you want to have some fun with $1 at 150-1. I'm gonna give you Jimmy Walker.
Wow.
I like his course history.
Wait, did we say
Walker?
this guy? I don't even remember saying this guy's name.
He already talked about him.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
He's got a great course history. I mean, he's done well here. If maybe he can get hot for one day early on and have the lead at 151. That could be a fun gamble to take for $1 too. Then the real plays that I like for first round leader, I like Sheffler at 45-1. I think that's a good value. And my favorite first round leader play is Kisner at 80-1. I think you're getting a really good value at 80-1 on a guy that I think could easily be, in the similar range as Sheffler in that 40 or 50-1 range.
I love it. That's a lot of dollar bets, gentlemen, and I'm excited to place every single one of those because it is Masters week. We are here for you. Sia already has his initial picks up. We had Steven. I don't know if you guys asked him to or whatever, but I got an email saying, I got this article. Can you put it up for me? So I was very excited about that. Steven gave us some news and notes, just some interesting information, going over some of the plays that he likes, as well as what some of the ownership percentages look a little earlier in the week. So that is all for free. Sia will be having his betting article coming out on windailysports.com as well, where we do have our betting picks for mostly for football, obviously now, but that's why we have the show. It is fun to do a little bit of that. As we said, Joel will be hanging out in the Discord, windailysports.com/chat to get 7 free days in the Discord chat. You get a whole Masters. So he's going to help you out with showdowns. They're going to help Sia and Joel and everybody else on the team is going to help you out with head-to-heads. It's going to be an absolute blast. We're here to help you make money. We also have Antonio and Patrick and then another article by Steven coming out. And we'll be, I promise you, Joel is winning $1 million. I said it. Joel's going to win the $1 million and I cannot wait. No, you're not. $2 million? It's $2 million? Jesus Christ. Joel is going to be, his kid isn't going to have to worry about college. I'm just going to tell you that much right now. Nothing to worry about college. And Joel is going to get so much Popeyes. He's not going to know what to do with it all. So, gentlemen, sincerely appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody, for the questions and listening and watching and asking. We appreciate you. Sia, where can everybody find you on the internet?
Tomorrow, live stream, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time for the NFL Against the Spread, the betting live stream. Also at Sia Najad and at Sia Najad Sports on Instagram.
All right. And in the Discord chat, as always. And Joel, where can everybody find you?
At Draftmaster Flex, you can find me there. And you can find me there on every site, Exchangeogram, you name it.
Exchangeogram. Not really sure what that means, but we appreciate each and every one of you. For Sia, for Joel, for the rest of the Win Daily Sports family. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we hope you make it a very profitable Masters weekend. Goodbye, friends.
Sports.
Sports.